So I've been looking into making this video for some time, and because of some recent announcements that we just got, I felt now would be the good time to go into this topic. And when it comes to these remakes and remasters that we've been getting for the past few years, I've been thinking that maybe we're getting them a bit too frequently. And I also feel that we are seeing an interesting phenomenon where certain games that you would think would get the ground up remake is getting a remaster instead, and then you see games that don't even need a remaster but they're getting one anyway. And there's a couple of different situations that we also see that I'll try to get into throughout this video as well. But with this video, essentially, what I want to start with is some of the OG remakes that we got. I don't know if these were like the first two remakes ever, but these are certainly one of the earlier ones, which would be the Spyro Reignited Trilogy and the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. And I want to talk about these two first because what they did for these two separate trilogies is they took these classic PlayStation 1 games and did a complete ground up remake, especially coming from Toys from Bob or whatever that studio is called, which is technically a product of Activision Blizzard, which is kind of a really shitty company now. If you know, you know. But they took those classic games, did a full ground up remake, and made it one of the most beautiful looking games ever. They charged like $40 for the package, individually 40 for the Spyro trilogy, 40 for the Crash trilogy. And it was a great deal, great package overall. And you probably can tell where I'm going with this topic. I'm not trying to hate on the recent Tomb Raider trilogy remaster. It is still on my list of games I'm looking to play very soon. It kind of came down between Tomb Raider, Final Fantasy Rebirth, and Helldivers for me to choose one. And I'm going with Helldivers for now. I'm gonna put some content out for that very soon. But for a game franchise, or rather, just ignore the franchise as a whole, but the trilogy itself, the Tomb Raider trilogy, the first game releasing 28 years ago, and for that to just get a remaster and not a full ground up remake is a really bizarre decision. And I don't know who decides this decision. I don't know if it's the studio as a whole or if it's someone on like a board seat. I don't know if it's a question of resources and time. I have no idea. But I was really hoping that they would give it the full ground up remake like they did with Spyro and Crash because it just didn't seem fair. And you also consider some games that get a ground up remake that came out much more recent than the Tomb Raider trilogy. I'm talking games like The Last of Us Part 1, Dead Space. Those games got a full ground up remake when this trilogy should have gotten one. Now, I'm not saying the game looks terrible. I've seen gameplay footage. It looks pretty good for the remaster, but it could look much better. And this is a rare case where the remaster is actually successful because we do see some remasters that flop and fail, like the GTA trilogy remaster was a disaster. Some of the remasters we've seen in the past were either like a waste of time, a waste of money, like The Last of Us Part 2 remaster was a huge waste. Granted, they did give you a few extra things, which I'll talk about in a bit, but I really wanted to see a full ground up remake. And my main point of this topic of this video is I feel that the further apart a game released, so for example, if a game released so many years ago, over 15 or so years ago, I feel those are the games that should get like a ground up remake. And I think games that are a bit more recent, somewhere around 10 or so years, it shouldn't be that difficult to just remaster it and make those visuals a bit better. When you look at the Resident Evil games, the first Resident Evil is technically a remake according to Capcom, but it is more of a remaster, I guess, because it is basically the same game, just in a much better visual performance and looks better. But you look at Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4, they are full ground up remakes, but they also change various things throughout the games. Whereas the Spyro and Crash, it is literally the same game from classic to current, just in the updated visuals and graphics. And I really wanted that for the Tomb Raider trilogy, and I want that for other classic games as well. Whether they decide to bring back classics like Ape Escape or Siphon Filter, even though those are playable on PlayStation Cloud, but it would be cool to see those classic games come back with the new upgraded visuals and performance rather than a remaster. I also want to see franchises like Jack and Daxter get a full ground up remake because those are PS2 games, and I think it's been long enough for that to happen with a full ground up remake. Even Infamous 1 and 2, I feel, was old enough to make that happen. You even look at titles like the Uncharted trilogy, it did get the PS4 remaster, and that kind of made sense because you're putting it on the next console to make it look better and play better. But I think now it could be justified to make the Uncharted trilogy a ground up remake. But Naughty Dog, they're gonna just, if they do that plan, they'll just remake the first one and charge $70 for just part one because Naughty Dog has become a shitty company recently. But there are other titles from the past that I think would benefit from a full ground up remake, and I think that Tomb Raider was one of them. We also just recently got an announcement for the Star Wars Battlefront collection, which is, I believe, Battlefront 1 and 2, the OG ones. And I don't think they are labeling it as like a remaster or a remake. I think it's just a collection. It's going to pretty much look the same, I guess. But they are giving you some new additions, and I don't know if the game is going to be like, here's a menu, choose part 1 and play that, or here's part 2 and play that. I don't know if they're going to just put all the content for both games into just one thing and you just play that. But you are getting some new playable characters. I don't know about new stages, but you are going to have 64 online multiplayer, which is pretty awesome. But with that game in particular, if you don't have crossplay, what's the point? Because it is coming out on everything: PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC. So you got to have crossplay with just the fact of all the consoles and the fact of 64 players. You got to have crossplay. But if not, it's a kind of a missed opportunity. But that would also be a good game to like remake from the ground up, especially what Battlefront 2, the recent one, it looks pretty good still. And you could have remade the OG Battlefront games. We also got announcements for Epic Mickey Rebrushed, which that game kind of came out, I believe, in 2015, 2012, around that time frame. And I think it is still a bit recent to get a remaster, but the only reason why I excused a full remake for that one is because technically it was a Wii game first, I believe, and maybe the remake is to help with controls so they can, redo the game for an actual controller instead of Wii controls. That makes sense to me. But then you also look at Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. That game came out in 2015, which is only about 9 years ago, which I think that game is still recent enough to just do a remaster and make it look better, because with a full ground up remake for a game that recent, you could see them charge full price when they can, not scam you on the price tag and just remaster the game to make it look better. I don't know what the price tag is. I don't even know what the release date of that game is either. I didn't play the original, so I'm not really following that one. But the good thing with the Tomb Raider in particular is that it's only $30 for the collection, which is great, $10 per game. But considering the remakes of Spyro and Crash was 3 games and it was $40 for the visual improvements, I would have paid $40 for the Tomb Raider games. And I just wish that they would have done that. It is cool, though, that you can switch between classic and remaster graphics, similar to Halo Combat Evolved in the Master Chief Collection. But I don't really care about that. It's just cool that you can do it. But I just wish that they would have done a full remake of that. And maybe I'm just complaining about Tomb Raider in general for this topic, maybe. But I really want to get to the point of, I think they are getting a bit too loose with remakes and remasters. I worry that maybe studios and developers are running out of ideas. Maybe. But we are seeing way too many remakes and remasters, and it's happening too quickly, in my opinion. And I want them to bring back classic titles that are fun, that I mean, I could play some of these classic titles in other ways, but there are people who love the nostalgia and they will play the classic titles on the classic consoles, whereas I want to play them in a newer format with newer visuals and make them look on par to current games. You even consider Silent Hill 2 is coming out potentially this year, maybe next year. And that was my first ever survival horror game and it was like my first experience with something that scary. But I think with this remake, the big problem so far, based on the trailer and gameplay we got, is the combat and the controls. Like, it just looks very stiff, and I'm hoping they fix it. I'm hoping the game lives up to the expectations of the original. But that is an example of something that's going to look much better and hopefully play better and is getting a full ground up treatment. But Again, I don't know if it's based on resources or someone's decision or who decides what gets remade and what gets remastered. But I just feel a game trilogy that started almost 30 years ago should have just gotten a full remake, and it got like the short end of the stick. But that's kind of my rant here, pretty much. I don't really have any other notes. I don't think I have any other notes there other than Nintendo did their remakes of classic games. Link's Awakening, Mario vs. Donkey Kong just got a Game Boy Advance remake. Pokemon had their remix, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, those kind of things. They do remake their games here and there. I'm sure there's other Nintendo remakes that I can't think of right now, but they make them, and it's just weird that Tomb Raider got a remaster, not a remake. And other recent games like Last of Us Part 1 and Dead Space got full ground up remakes. But that's my video for today. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree with me about Tomb Raider getting the short end of the stick? Do you feel like I should just play it and just deal with the remaster and call it a day? Let me know what you think, and let me know if you are playing Helldivers. What do you think? I am going to play it this weekend. It's going to arrive today, and I'm going to jump in with my boys and play it. So take care, have a good one, peace out.